Hey there. I'm going to say three things to you and let's see how you respond. Sex, orgasms, and the body. That's this week's weekly dose of higher quiz. Which of those three aspects or energy fields are of higher consciousness? That's something I want you to canoodle around today. I thought this was a totally worthwhile topic to cover so that we can unravel the crap many of us may have going around on the top of sex, the body, and orgasms. The beauty and grace at higher levels and help you to understand where are you at on this sticky little topic. But before we do, I want to introduce myself. My name is Liz Gracia. I am your happy host. Welcome to another episode of your weekly dose of higher consciousness that you can find on the podcast at trumpeteroradio.com or on the YouTube channel at trumpeteroftruth.tv.com. This is the place to discover what I call the foundational basics and essential understandings for raising your level of consciousness and building a better life. And I support this intention by putting power and truth into context based on consciousness research that was done over a lifetime and decades by Dr. David R. Hawkins, which culminated in more than a dozen books on spiritual enlightenment, advanced states of consciousness, and what's widely known around the world as the map of consciousness, which is a proven energy scale to realize your ultimate human potential. So that's what this podcast is all about. And if this is new to you, I highly recommend you go to some of my beginning podcasts to introduce you to the topic of the consciousness, why it's so significant in our lives, and how you can see where you're on the map. And, a map is useful to figure out where you're at and where you want to go and to get you there. And the weekly dose of higher consciousness quiz, I actually do once a month because I want to help put things in context and help you really think and find a way into discerning truth and power and at what level is it true and energy field of these particular topics, all to know. So every month when I do the weekly dose of higher consciousness quiz, I'm going to say it again. I want you to think about it. What do you think is of highest consciousness? Is it having sex? Is it body? Or is it orgasm? And I'm going to tell you the results at the end of this video because this is the week in the month where I'd love to tell you more about our sponsor, the MindBodySpiritNetwork.com, which is a website of curated content of higher consciousness that's intended to help you shift the field and align with more power and truth on a wide variety of topics related to mind, body, spirit, health, personal growth, spiritual development, things like that. So encourage the MindBodySpiritNetwork.com where you'll find weekly online events from renowned experts in a wide fields like sound healing, shamanism, energy medicine, a ton of them now, I can't think of them, fitness and health, of course, somatic movement therapy, a vast array of alternative and holistic approaches to healing, preventative medicine, things like that. And all of these events that we share, we're affiliate partners of the network, Sounds True, Evolving Mind Valley. And I do a little research and get some consciousness calibrations as best I can of some of the teachers that you'll find, curate the ones that had been calibrated to being of higher consciousness. Because if you are, in the absence of consciousness and consciousness calibrations, we can all get sucked in teachings and programs and following others that essentially they don't necessarily know it, but they're coming from a level of consciousness that's below 200 on the. There's no truth. It's negatively oriented by nature, downward pulling and destructive. So instead of continuing courses and listen to others that don't speak the truth, and it's not that they're trying to fool you, likely they have no awareness of where they're coming from within the context of the map of consciousness. So that's what the Mind, Body, Spirit Network is all about. And many of these webinars are all like an hour long, are really quite good. And I've listened in on quite a few of them, and I'm doing more of that because on our other podcasts, highvibetriberadio.com and High Vibe Tribe TV on the YouTube channel, I talk about the events and share my insights into consciousness and my own experience with some of these alternative modalities and ways of kind of healing mind, body, and spirit. So, and all of these events typically lead to online courses, which is not to suck you into. It's intended to align you with teachings of higher consciousness that you do want, so that you can be the change you want to see in the world on a wide variety of topics. So many things you don't have to take a webinar first for. There's online courses we've curated that can help you learn how to let go, from Eckhart Tolle, Michael Singer, who's the author of the Untitled over there that we've curated, in addition to all of our podcasts and videocasts for Vibe Tribe Radio and TV, and your weekly dose of higher consciousness. So head over to the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com, subscribe to our newsletter, or you can subscribe to our daily push notifications, because we do have content coming out every day, and really start to shore up your own intentions and your own energy field for being of higher consciousness in this world and being the change you want to see in your life. So that's my little spiel of the Mind, Body, Spirit Network. Let's get back to today's higher consciousness quiz, which begs the question, which is of highest consciousness? Is it the body? Is it having sex? Or is it having an orgasm? Now, I got some of these calibrations over at my called consciousnesscalibrations.com, which is a subscriber-based website. There's many calibrations that are free to the public, but then as you go deeper, he does, he needs support for all the work that he does, because he's doing a tremendous service to the world by providing a website where you can get calibrations as to the truth of anything that exists in the world today or has existed in the past. And it's not an opinion or a judgment. None of these calibrations are opinions or judgment. And the lower mind likes to think that it is, because the lower mind is filled, and the ego is filled with opinions and judgments, thinking that's having power, when in fact it is not. So the calibrations are kind of the energy of, when you do it, you get clinically removed. He has no interest in the results. I mean, clinically, he's like, let's just see what the truth is. And that's what I've asked him to do for my websites as well. It's like, I don't care what the results are. I want the truth of what kind of energy, as an example, is coming from this podcast. What's the energy coming from the websites? And I'm happy to report that all of our, the websites and podcasts and videocasts that we share run in the range of 320 to 350, I think, on the map of consciousness, which is right where I intended to be, because it can serve a lot of people to understand that you are the creator of your own experience. Okay, so back to the quiz. /orgasm for having sex and the orgasm. And I'm going to share what the body is, which came from one of Dr. Hawkins' books, because the body's important to understand the consciousness of the body. So let's start with that. The consciousness of the body calibrates at 205 on the map of consciousness, which is on the lowest level of the low end of consciousness is 200 on the high side. So anything above 200 is positively oriented, upward pulling, constructive in nature. And of course, that would be the intention of divinity, of course, is to create something that's useful, positively oriented, constructive, blah, blah, blah. The body calibrates at 205 on the map of consciousness, which is 10 to the 205th power. And again, if this is all new to you, you're going to want to check out my foundational videos that speak about the map of consciousness on the high end, and then I did a separate one on the low end. So you understand what the heck I'm talking about here. Why is it important to understand? And just because the body, as an example, is on the low end of today's quiz doesn't mean that it's less than anything, because the body just is what it is. It doesn't require the energy of any higher consciousness to exist, essentially. So every level or every field of energy serves a purpose. And the body does not require like high-tech science and like fuel to operate, like say a nuclear power plant. It's a different, calibrates at 250 on the map of consciousness, which is the energy level of neutral, which is super interesting. And neutral is a level of consciousness that I have experienced as being quite freeing, whereas the lower mind will think neutral is a weak position, and in fact it's not. It's a very powerful non-position. It's an energy field that does not have to be right and prove others wrong. So sex is in this same energy field. So what's interesting to understand is that you have to align with this energy field to have sex in general. And what the gentleman is saying here on this particular post about it is that there has to be physical trust in order for anyone to want to have sex with somebody, which is super interesting to understand. Like if you have a second thought, like you're ready to have sex with someone and then you have a second thought, it could be your intuition saying that you shouldn't go here, don't go here. And I've had that message given to me, like, which is just interesting that it's coming around to understand what does having sex mean, what's the energy required to have it, and what's the feeling going on if you don't want to have it. And in general, there's no physical trust. So that's good to know. Now the orgasm, which was very surprising to me, calibrates at 545 on the map of consciousness. That's the energy field above unconditional love and inner joy. And, you know, when you have an orgasm, you're like, holy crow. You're in la la land, and that's why we all want to have them. However, there are blocks to having orgasms. And if you don't have them, right, I'm one of them. And I know that it's been mental or emotional and physical blocks for me all my life that really has to do with how I perceived my mother growing up and not understanding why she was so like, don't touch me, don't look at me, don't love me to everybody. And I came to understand later in life after she passed that there was incest in her family growing up. And my mother grew up in like the Wild West back then, right? In Colorado and Wyoming. Her dad worked in the oil fields back then. It was it's still kind of the Wild West, but back then it was for sure the Wild West. And this type of thing would run rampant. So I didn't know that growing up. I just knew there was something off. And I kind of watched it and was trained by it because I gave it so much attention, like to say no to sex, say no to touching, say no to the body, don't love me, don't touch me, leave me alone. I know that energy. So what Brian is saying here is orgasm is a higher alignment for sure at 545 on the map. The energy of this field is rare for humans to even be on this planet. Very few people calibrate at this level or above, but clearly we can all have experiences at this level. So to align with the energy field of having an orgasm, which is also inner joy, unconditional love, is surrender. It requires more surrender, including surrender of the mind, the emotions, and the body, which may explain why it's difficult for some people. And I have to say, I had a hard time surrendering all three of those because I didn't know any better. I'm just kind of in my own life. It's like no, no, no everywhere. And I lacked, trust, physical trust for sure on many occasions. And now I understand why I lacked physical trust in some people. So anyway, that's today's weekly dose of higher consciousness quiz. I hope you found this one as truly interesting and relevant as you, because we got to put sex into context. What's it all about? What's going on there? Why are there blocks to it? Why do people stop having sex? In marriages, as an example, there's a pattern in marriages that you just stop having sex. What's going on there? It has nothing to do with your partner. It has to do with what's running inside of you. What kind of blocks you got running? Are you willing to let go of them and surrender it all to God? Surrender it in general. You don't have to surrender it to God. You just surrender it, let go. All right, so that's this week's quiz. Next week, we're going to hit upon a level of consciousness. And we do levels of consciousness up the map to grief. That'll be next week's weekly dose of higher consciousness, where we talk about a particular level of consciousness, and we're in the lower levels right now because I knew we had to get to them. We can't ignore them. We need to understand what the low levels are and where we're at in relationship to them on any topic in our life. If you like what's going on here, subscribe to our podcast at trumpeteroftruthradio.com or on the YouTube channel at trumpeteroftruth.tv.com. Again, my name is Liz Garcia. I'm your happy host of your weekly dose of higher consciousness. I'll see you next week.